Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us to the second virtual DOE Office of Indian Energy Program Review. This is actually the 11th for the office. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we ended up doing a virtual review last year and this year as well. We're hopeful that we can all get together next fall. And I do want to take the moment here to sort of thank the presenters in advance for their willingness to share their stories. Next slide, please. So just for those of you who I may not have met, my name is Lizana Pierce. I've been with in energy development for 27 years now, and I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with Indian tribes, Alaska villages, and Native communities for over 22 years. I am a mechanical engineer by degree, and in my current position as the deployment supervisor for the Office of Indian Energy, me and our team, which I introduced on Monday, execute the deployment program, which is comprised of financial assistance through competitive grants, technical assistance at no charge to tribes and tribal entities, which provides technical financial analysis, modeling, strategic energy planning, advice and support from subject matter experts. And then the third prong is our education outreach, which includes websites and emails and workshops and monthly webinars that we've been doing for quite a number of years. In addition, in that position, I also manage the funding opportunity announcements, which are national in scope, act as the project officer on many grants over the years, and oversee not only our laboratory partners, but also our other TA provider partners. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the project presentations, and I'll pass it over to Mike Stevenson, one of the relatively new hires to our office. For those of you who don't know, we're really a small office, and the office was authorized in the Energy Policy Act of 2005 and really wasn't stood up until 2011. But about a little over a year ago, we had 4 FTEs. We've since grown to 13, and I did introduce, the team on Monday, and that'll be recorded if you're interested to learn more about the office and the deployment program as well. So before we do that, let's go into some event details. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on DOE's Office of Indian Energy website, energy.gov/Indian Energy, in a couple of weeks. Copies of the presentation slides will be posted shortly, and everyone will receive a post-event email with the link on the page where the slides and recordings will be located. Because we are recording the webinar, all phones have been muted. However, we'll answer questions at the end of the final presentation for this session. And so if you have questions throughout, you can use the question box in the control panel and type in your question, and we will get to them at the end. Okay, I think next, again, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and I'm going to pass the floor to Mike Stevenson to do the introduction, introduce himself, and introduce the projects.
Great. Thank you very much, Lizana. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Session 8 of the 2021 Virtual Program Review. It's an absolute pleasure for me to have the opportunity to be with you for this session. My name is Mike Stevenson. I recently joined DOE as a project officer in May of this year. I've had the good fortune of working with many of you prior to joining the Office of Indian Energy, as I spent a little over 6 years working as an electrical engineer with the Division of Energy and Mineral Development, an energy office under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. While with the BIA, I oversaw pre-development feasibility grants, most of which were grants geared towards tribes assessing the potential for developing microgrids or the feasibility of forming tribal utility authorities. As far as formal education, I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Colorado and a master's degree in infrastructure planning and management from the University of Washington. If I have not yet had the chance to work with you, either on a project or technical assistance with DOE, or in my past role with the Department of the Interior, I very much look forward to the opportunity to meet you, and I hope to work with you in the very near future. Next, we'll go over purpose and agenda for the program review. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Participating in the program review is a reporting requirement for all grant recipients for the DOE Office of Indian Energy Funding. It is intended to provide annual project updates and to share successes and lessons learned. As many of you know, when we are able to meet in person, the program review is also an excellent opportunity to network. While we've all been forced to learn how to navigate virtual meetings and video conferences over the past couple of years, I'm hopeful this is our last virtual program review, and next fall we can celebrate your project successes and discuss your tribe's energy vision in person. Until that day arrives, I wish you all good health and hope everyone stays safe. Please advance to the next slide. Thank you. Our first presenters for this session will be Harvey and Cheryl with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. They will be presenting on 2 projects today, both of which are solar battery microgrid projects. The first they will speak to is a project located on the Big Cypress Reservation that was funded in fiscal year 2018. The second is on the Brighton Reservation and is a new project awarded this past summer. Unfortunately, Mr. Ryan Brown with the Spirit Lake Tribe will not be able to join us to discuss their wind project today. Following Harvey will be Dr. Kelvin Frank from the Quinault Indian Nation in Washington. Kelvin will be presenting on Quinault's project, which is also a new award funded this past summer and is similarly a solar battery microgrid project. As a reminder, please type any questions into the webinar control box at any time. We will be responding to questions received after Kelvin has finished presenting on the Quinault Indian Nations project. And with that, Harvey and Cheryl, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Harvey Rambarad. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Development with the Seminole Tribe of Florida, and I was really looking forward to attending and meeting with you guys in person in Colorado. Cheryl, are you able to get on the phone, on the call?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am here.
Okay. Cheryl is the business associate. She is the interim executive director of finance for the Seminole Tribe. However, I'll be doing most of the presentation. Next slide, please. A little bit about the Seminole Tribe. The Seminole Tribe is a federally recognized tribe of recognized Indian tribe and is the only tribe in America that never signed a peace treaty. There are approximately 4,240 tribal members, and it controls over 90,000 acres of land. The reservations are distributed in the state of Florida, pretty much as you can see in the graphic out to the left. The Big Cypress Reservation is our largest reservation, which is centrally located within the state. The next largest is the Brighton Reservation, and the other ones are significantly smaller. Next slide, please. The Seminole Tribe exercised sovereign authority over territories in Southeast U.S. from time immemorial. It resisted U.S. political and military removal efforts throughout the 19th century. It was organized under the Indian Reorganization Act in 1957, and it's recognized for leadership in advancing sovereignty. We had the first smoke shops in 1976, the first high stakes bingo in 1979. Next slide, please. And the first guitar-shaped hotel in 2019. Next slide. Yeah, always like to show this off. Next slide. Okay, so the dependence problem. The tribe depends on outsiders for energy for governmental operations and economic development. It has no authority over state-regulated utilities, and it's subject to rate increases and supply interruptions. The tribe's ability to plan long-term is impaired because of unknown future energy costs. Next slide, please. Retail prices that utilities charge tribes are high and generally increasing. And even though natural gas has been cheaper, electric rates have generally continued to rise, and costs may rise as users leave the utility system. But more and more people turn into solar. There's a smaller customer base, so chances are people who are still on the grid are going to have to pay or receive rate hikes. Next slide, please. What prompted this project was the impact of Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma made landfall in August 2017 and impacted the entire state of Florida. It was an extremely powerful and catastrophic storm. Most of the tribe's reservation communities, businesses, and government operations were affected. Several facilities across the tribe's reservation sustained severe damage. Next slide, please. The tribe had to close and discontinue its government operations for several weeks and in some cases months until recovery. On the Big Cypress Reservation, there are approximately 680 residents, and this reservation was particularly impacted by grid resiliency issues on outages. Just to give you an idea, in the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, the tribe was the largest purchaser of propane and diesel for generators in Florida. And one of the things we learned was that even commercial generators are not designed to run for weeks non-stop. Next slide, please. As a result of this, in 2018, the chairman and the tribal council formed the Renewable Energy Committee with key people across the tribe, including a representative from the chairman's office. This committee was charged with ensuring power continuity across critical tribal operations to the extent possible during and after a storm, and identifying solutions to mitigate and limit power outages as a result of a storm, as well as identifying opportunities that will allow the tribe to be as self-sufficient as possible in meeting its energy demands. And this project will be the first step in that direction. Next slide, please. So we look to the sun. Florida is a sunshine state, and we have a great potential for harnessing the energy from the sun. Some of the states to the west have they receive a greater amount of direct normal irradiance, but we are still a sunshine state, and I think there's enough energy for us to really make this work. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of our BC solar project. The tribe will design and build approximately 445 kilowatt of solar PV facilities and 1,510 kilowatt battery energy storage system, otherwise known as BESS, transfer switches and control systems that will serve four essential facilities in the Big Cypress Reservation. The systems will be interconnected to the grid and to the backup generators. During an outage, the BESS will be able to run the facilities for approximately 3 hours before the generator kicks in. The generator will run the facility and recharge the BESS, and then it will cut off and switch over to the BESS when the BESS reaches a certain level of charge in the case of an extended outage. Next slide, please. The project participants, obviously the Department of Energy, Office of Indian Energy, and it's great to work with Lizana and the team. The chairman and tribal council, executive and senior management staff, our consultants, Baker Tilly, and assistants from Sandia Labs, Blades Electric, and tribal members. Next slide, please. What have we accomplished so far? Well, I'm very happy to report that we finally have a design build contract executed, and a notice to proceed was issued as of September 30th, 2021. We received the schematic design on October 22nd. We have reviewed it and submitted our comments to AGT That's Advanced Green Technologies. It's a contractor that was selected for the design build project, and they are working on developing the design and incorporating the comments, the responses to the comments that they received. We are hoping to have the design completed by January to February, have it permitted, and start construction in March of 2022. The past accomplishments: we were awarded this grant in 2018. We had to reevaluate the needs for each facility and modify the scope of the project with approval from DOE. That was a major accomplishment because the original plan would have only given us resilience for about 15 minutes on the battery backup. We developed a revised RFP and a design build contract template for this project, which was a very long, drawn-out process, and that's part of the lessons learned. We advertised the RFP in 2020, and we selected a contractor in 2021. Next slide, please. This slide is a summary. I'll give a graphic summary of the project. Shows the locations of the buildings highlighted sort of in pink and outlined in the areas outlined in the cyan color. And it shows, the chart shows the amount of energy we're looking to generate from PV and the amount of battery capacity we're looking to have at each facility. And at the you can see that we are expecting to save approximately 30% on the energy needs of these buildings when the project is completed. Next slide, please. This slide is basically, I took a graphic from the schematic design. It shows the location of the solar mounted panels, the ground mounted solar panels to the northeast of the Frank Billy Field office. It shows pretty much where the existing generator and breaker is, the location for the proposed BESS, and the existing electrical room. And the idea is to interconnect or collect the energy from the solar panels, have it interconnected at the generator and the BESS and the grid. Next slide, please. For the BC Senior Center, again, this is the schematic design. And in this case, the solar panels will be carport mounted. These carports will provide shades for the vehicles of our seniors in those facilities, and I expect they are probably going to be the most frequented parking spots. And again, it's interconnected to the grid. You can see the proposed location for the BESS, the existing electrical equipment, and the existing generator and breaker. Next slide, please. For the public safety building, we are looking at a combination of ground-mounted solar panels in an area to the north, I guess it's to the east of the building. That's actually northeast if it's rotated correctly. And you can see the location of the existing electrical room. We are also going to be having carport mounted solar panels. This is the schematic design. So the blue X's are showing the trees that are going to have to be removed. But this project, again, some of the things we are having problems with is the location of the BESS, so that it does not adversely affect the operations of the fire department and the public safety, the SPD departments. And again, some of the challenges is trying to make sure that the connections, the panels are as close to the BESS as we can, and as close to the electrical and generator rooms. So next slide, please. For the BC Health Clinic, in this case, the schematic design or the plan for this building was to put all of the solar panels on the roof of the building. It's a relatively new roof, new building. And when we did the layout for the roof, they determined that there was not sufficient space in order to generate the 170 kilowatt of solar energy that we were looking for this facility. So we are also looking to add some carport mounted solar panels on the ground in order to meet these needs. Next slide, please. Now, this here is a design logic diagram, which I will not go into, but when we received the 30% design from AGT, we looked at this logic diagram, and basically what this is telling me is that when in the event that the grid goes down, the battery is going to run the building for about 3 hours. When it's depleted to a certain level, the generator will kick in, and then the generator will run the facility. However, during this operation, the BESS will continue to supplement the generator to reduce the load on the generator. But in this scenario, what we'd have is the generator would have to continue to run incessantly. And that is not what we were looking for. We have requested that AGT revise this logic diagram so that when the grid is down, battery runs the system for approximately 3 hours. After that, the generator kicks in. The generator runs the facility, but it also recharges the BESS. When the BESS reaches the right level or the optimum level, it takes over running the facility and the generator cuts off. So we do not anticipate that the generator would have to run for more than 4 hours. And I think that is going to be a much better situation than having the generator run incessantly. So right now, AGT is having to revise their logic diagram in order to facilitate what we are asking them to do in order to achieve the type of resilience we are looking for. Because if we had to keep the generators running incessantly in the event we had another Hurricane Irma event, that really would not be practical. So being able to interrupt the run times for the generators and supplement it using the BESS would save on greenhouse gas emissions. It will also save on wear and tear on the generators. And if there's any backup, any maintenance that needs to occur on the generators, it can take place while it's down, and the facility will still be able to run. So next slide, please. What's yet to be completed? Well, we need to complete the design. We hope to have that done by February next year. Execution of the interconnect agreements. AGT is already working with Glades Electric on that. Issuance of building permits. We are having our building department review the schematic design and the preliminary plans as they're being developed in order to expedite it. We are hoping to have construction start in March of next year. Commissioning will take place in August and close out in September. Next slide, please. So lessons learned. I've already mentioned some of this, but the first thing you need to do is to double check your PV and BESS storage needs to provide the desired resilience. In the original concept, what we were given by a consultant, we would only have received about 15 to 30 minutes of runtime for the facility with the amount of BESS storage that was being proposed. We went back to Baker Tilly and they resized, they reanalyzed the needs of the building and came up with the proper sizing. And after that, we were able to go back, explain the situation to DOE, and were able to modify our grant. The other thing we needed to look at was balancing the sizing of the BESS to allow for the desired duration of battery-only energy without oversizing. This is important because theoretically you can put enough batteries out there so that you'll be able to run the facility for 2 weeks, but does that really make practical sense? Because you're just not going to be using the energy, and it's not going to be recycling through the batteries, through the battery energy storage system. So the idea with the 3 to 4 hour duration of time for the BESS running the facility is to give the BESS the opportunity to power recycle, basically, to use the energy to discharge and recharge. And we are also going to be setting up this so that we'll be able to do peak time power shaving in order to reduce the cost to the tribe at a time when energy rates are highest. That's when we'll be using the BESS to offset some of the energy needs of the building. So it's a very complicated design, and I wish the electrical engineers well, but that's what we want, and it's up to them to make the adjustments and the design in order to make this happen. Another thing we learned is developing a new design build contract template can be very time consuming. Took us over a year. Expect delays due to unforeseen circumstances and be flexible. With COVID situation, everybody had to work remotely, and we had a situation where there was no tribal council meetings for about 4 or 5 months in a row, which delayed us being able to award the design build contract. And the last lesson is to keep the DOE informed. I am in frequent communication with James and Lizana and now with Mike in order to make sure that they are aware of what's going on with the project, and they are always willing to help. So next slide, please. This is the current schedule. I touched on this a little bit. We are looking to have the interconnection agreement done by the end of this year and construction to start in March of this year, commissioning in August and verification in August. And then we are looking to, in 2022, we are hoping to have our first, well, we wouldn't have a full year of energy reporting, but we'll have at least 3 months till November. And that's why I added a 4th annual reporting, hopefully in Denver in 2023, when we'll be able to provide our first full year of production reporting. Okay, so that's it for Big Cypress. Next slide, please. Now, here's the Brighton 4 project overview. In the Brighton project, the Seminole tribe will design and build approximately 475 kilowatt solar facilities and 1,810 kilowatt hour battery energy storage system. It will include transfer switches and control system that will serve 4 essential facilities in the Brighton Reservation. The systems will be interconnected to the grid and to the backup generators. During outage, the BESS will be able to run the facilities for at least 3 hours before generator kicks in. Then the generator is going to run the facility and recharge the BESS, then cut off and switch over to BESS during extended outages. Next slide, please. Again, the same project participants, and we are very grateful to all of them. Next slide, please. Well, the current project status, we recently received the award for this project, and we have started working on the RFP. We have requested a proposal from Baker Tilly to assist us with the RFP and for evaluating the bids, and we are awaiting this proposal and execution of the contract. Thus far, the only accomplishment has been able to successfully be awarded this grant. Next slide, please. Here are the project locations. Again, it is same type of facilities we are looking at. The main administration building, the public safety building, the health clinic, and the veterans building. Veterans building also serves as a storm shelter in the event of storms. So this project will add photovoltaic solar panels and BESS to 4 facilities on the Brighton Reservation. They are the administration building, public safety building, veterans building, and health clinic, and it will reduce the energy need by approximately 26%. Next slide, please. The table again shows the amount of energy at each facility we are looking to generate and the battery capacity. And as you can see, the average energy needs of the building would be approximately 26% of the average energy needs of the building will be met from these facilities. However, in Brighton, the PV will be mainly carport mounted or roof mounted, except for the health clinic where it will be ground mounted. It will be interconnected to the grid, BESS and generator. Again, when the grid is out, BESS will run the buildings for approximately 3 hours before generator starts. Then the generator will run the building and recharge the BESS until BESS can take over during extended outages. Next slide, please. And these are the slides that the concept that was provided with regards to how we're going to achieve this. As you can see, there's a square parking lot on the right-hand side of the image. The idea is to install carport facilities in this parking lot to provide shade as well as energy, and then add the BESS at the different buildings. You can see the first array is to feed the public safety building, and the second array would be for the administration building. One of the concerns with this concept is obviously the long run from the parking lot to the facilities. So we looked at the alternative for, instead of putting it in the parking lot, if it's feasible, and we can get the same amount that we are looking for rooftop installation, we will look at that too. So when we do our RFP, we will be looking for an alternate bid for installation on roof mounted as opposed to carport mounted, and see if that makes more sense if it's feasible. Next slide, please. And again, this section of the parking lot is an extension of that same square parking lot. And in this case, we'd use this particular area that's outlined in blue to put the carport mounted solar panels, provide shades for 2 rows of cars, and provide energy for the veterans building. Next slide, please. For the health clinic, we are looking to install ground-mounted solar panels in the area outlined in blue. And essentially, this one would probably be the most cost-effective installation. Next slide, please. Again, the same logic. This logic is the logic that was provided for the Big Cypress, and it does not work. So it's being revised right now. The same logic diagram that's being used, that will be developed for Big Cypress, will be used for the Brighton Reservation. Next slide, please. The activities yet to be completed. Well, we still need to develop and complete the RFP for the design build project. We need to select a contractor and award the contract, execute the contract and issue the NTP. We need to complete the design, execute the interconnect agreements, get the building permits issued, build it, and then commission it, and then close it out. Next slide, please. So again, I'm going to go over the lessons learned from the BC project. Always double check your PV and BESS storage needs to provide the desired resilience. Balance the sizing of the BESS to allow for the desired duration of battery-only energy without oversizing. We learned that developing a new design build contract template can be very time consuming. Luckily, I'm hoping that this time around it's going to be a lot quicker because we have already done it one time. And then I said expect delays due to unforeseen circumstances and be flexible. You never know what could happen. COVID was a surprise to us. Hopefully will not be any, we will not receive any further surprises like that, but we can be flexible and as always keep DOE informed. Next slide, please. This here was the milestone summary table, and hoping that we can meet this with regards to getting the RFP out. We have it, they getting the contractor on board by the middle of March, and executing the design build contract by April. I think we can achieve this timeline. We are working to try and adhere as strictly as possible to this and get it done on time. Next slide, please. And this here is where I close with the Native American proverb: we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, and it's our responsibility to try and make it a better place and leave them with a better world. Next slide, please. Thank you. Click again. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, that was great. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for presenting on your project. As another reminder, please type any questions into the webinar control box at any time. We will be responding to questions received after the next presentation. Our next presentation will be Dr. Kelvin Frank presenting on the Quinault Indian Nations project. We'll give James a second here to load your PowerPoint, and when he does, Kelvin, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start with an introduction. My name is Dr. Kelvin Frank. I'm a member of the Rocky Boys band of Chippewa Cree in northern Montana. I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, hockey country. So I'm a Canadian by birth, but my mother was a member of the Rocky Boys band of Chippewa, and I'm also a member there. And I spent, I'm the planning manager for the Quinault Indian Nation currently. And I spent 21 years teaching at Eastern Washington University in the Department of Urban Regional Planning and in Public Administration. So that's just a little bit about me. Next slide, please. The Quinault Indian Nation consists of the Quinault and Queets tribes, although, you know, I really don't buy into that designation of Queets tribe, because they are a member of the Quinault Indian Nation, and Queets is just a village by itself. So, you know, the Quinaults are descendants of 5 other coastal tribes: the Quileute, the Hoh, the Chehalis, the Chinook, and the Cowlitz. There are approximately 3,000 enrolled members and a population of approximately 1,400 on the reservation. We have 2 villages, one in Tohola, which has a population of approximately 800 tribal members, and the other village, Queets, 100 to 200 tribal members. Slide 3, please. For those that are not familiar with the Quinault Nation, the reservation is located on the southwest corner of the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State, about 3 hours outside of Seattle, straight west, I would say, of Seattle. Tohola is at the mouth of the Quinault River, and the village of Queets is near the mouth of the Queets River. Slide 4, please. I'll start by reviewing the solar experience that the nation has had, and then I'll talk about climate change, which that is affecting the nation and its resources. I'll touch on the need for relocating the village of Tohola and how renewable energy will play a role in the move. I'll finish with a brief overview of the project that we are about to undertake. Quinault completed its first renewable energy project earlier this year. Thank you to our senior planner, Kelsey Moldenti. Quinault was offered the chance to work with two nonprofits, Twin Solar and the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, to install a 25 kilowatt system. Originally, the system was to be a donated use system, but it ended up being a brand new system with battery backup. Quinault chose the community center and our gymnasium building up in Queets for the install because of its value to the community. The system will back up some life safety systems in the community center. Power goes out in Queets a couple times a year because of our storms. In fact, recently we've had, in the past couple of days, we've had a lot of flooding, power outages, trees down, roads washed out. I mean, it gets pretty horrible in the winter rainy months, and it's getting worse and worse every year. I've only been here in the community for 3 years, and I've noticed a lot of change in the past 3 years. So yeah, Twin and its volunteer electricians and installers work with tribal members to provide some training and installation. Tribal members took courses for up to 12 education hours for North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. Bonneville Environmental Foundation provided the K through 12 school in Tohola with curriculum regarding solar energy, which I thought was great. The nation should save about $2,000 annually on its power bills. Slide 5, please. Here you can see volunteers, installers working with tribal members on the roof, completing electrical work for the Powerwall batteries and working with tribal members to prepare the panel wiring. We hope to use this project as a guide for our upcoming solar installation. Next slide, please. These are pictures through the last century showing Anderson Glacier to the left in our Olympic National Park. This is the headwaters of the Quinault River. As you can see, the glacier has diminished to nothing in the past 100 years. If you look at 1927 down to 1965, how it's diminished, and then all down to 2004, which is practically nothing. And today, you know, there is nothing. Slide 8, please. 7. The disappearing glacier has led to lower and warmer summer river flows, which have an adverse effect on our salmon. Melting glaciers are not the only climate change threat to Quinault. The ocean itself, the acidification, may harm our razor clams. Warmer weather may increase the threat from forest pests and fire. We've had a lot of fires in this area in the past few years. And the fires are getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's very concerning. Salmon and razor clams have great cultural significance to the Quinault people, and so does the salmon. clams, and timber are major economic drivers for the nation. Finally, the Quinault people themselves are endangered by sea level rise and increased chances of coastal flooding here in the village of Tohola. Given the negative effects climate change is having and will have on the Quinault Nation, Quinault's pursuit of solar energy makes perfect sense. I've mentioned sea level rise already, but Tohola is faced with a second threat, which is the tsunami. The Cascadian subduction zone lies off the Washington coast and is similar technically to the plates off Indonesia and Japan that triggered quakes and tsunamis. The interval of big quakes and tsunami ranges from 300 to 500 years, and we are 321 years into that cycle. Because of the dual threats of sea level rise and tsunami, the nation made the difficult decision to relocate the lower village of Tohola to higher ground. If a tsunami was to ever hit the village of Tohola, we would be 40 feet underwater. Therefore, we are moving 200 feet up above higher ground. Slide 9, please. As you can see from the images here, the lower village of Tohola is very low-lying and the subject of coastal flooding. It is protected by a seawall that breached in 2014 and was rebuilt, and they continue to work on it. So we're having a lot of problems with our seawall because of the force of, the ocean itself, the mighty water. The seawall will not provide protection from a tsunami. Many important public buildings are in the lower village, as well as approximately 170 homes. So relocating is really a big task for us as planners. The new village site is at an elevation of 125 to 165 feet and is adjacent to some existing infrastructure. The village site is shown in yellow in the graphic on screen. I don't know if we're on the right screen. Oh, there we are. Slide 10. I believe that might be the next slide. Inundation depth. No, I think you back up a little bit. One more. As you can see here that the tsunami may be up to 40 or 50 feet deep in the lower village. Yeah, I think one more back. There we go. I think that's the one. The relocation, of course, will take us many years, but as homes and facilities are built up the hill, we hope to integrate renewable energy into the village. Renewable energy facilities were included as an emphasis in the Tohola Village Relocation Master Plan adopted in 2017. The plan explored climate appropriate and energy efficient housing materials and design, as well as including various energy facilities. Next slide, please. One more, I believe. There we go. These facilities include a biomass facility and solar installations. The biomass facility would utilize timber slash from the nation's timber operations to produce hot water that would heat community facilities. The village of Tohola is served by one paved road that stretches 10 miles from the nearest town off Reservation, and this road dead ends in the village. The one power line that serves Tohola parallels that road, while some say that the road starts in Tohola rather than ends there. The power supply definitely does not start in Tohola. This is important as the road and power line travel along the beach for several miles and are susceptible to tsunami and landslides. If a tsunami takes out the power line, the village could be without power for 6 months to 2 years, depending on how far east in the county that the infrastructure is damaged. Residents will need to shelter in place. Solar power, in this case, would not be solely about reducing carbon footprints or saving money on electrical bills. It would be about survival, providing heat, refrigeration, communications, and light. In the long term, a 1 megawatt microgrid array can be islanded from the grid may be the solution. The nation has a study examining the possibility of such a system, but no design has been done for it yet. It would be most appropriate to undertake this project when more facilities have been constructed in the new village. Slide 12, please. However, now is the time to get to work on a smaller system. This coming year, the Quinault Indian Nation will install a 99 kilowatt system with battery backup. This is our Department of Energy grant project. The project will supply power to the grid, but most importantly, in case of power outage, it would be able to support some life safety systems like lighting, refrigeration, exit signs in our new generations building, allowing it to serve as an emergency shelter. Our generations building is a newly built in phase 1 of our relocation project. We have an elders facility, an elders building, along with early childhood learning and some other children's programs within that building. So that's the generations building, the 7 generations building. Next slide, please. This project will not only allow for greater overall safety with the generations building, but it will also provide for lower electrical bills through net metering. As part of this project, we want to encourage workforce development. In parallel with our RFP for installation, we have an RFP for workforce development to provide for some initial training for certification. Quinault's Travel Employment Rights Office, or TERO office, will be heavily involved in the training. With more tribal members educated in solar, we hope that the nation will be able to maintain the facility itself. This project will be an example and learning experience for the nation in anticipation of the larger microgrid array down the road. Quinault Indian Nation is undertaking the project by itself and will own the project. The Bonneville Environmental Foundation is providing technical assistance. Slide 14, please. Here you can see the general layout of the array and its relationship to the generations building. The generations name does not have anything to do with energy generation. Actually, the building houses the senior program and the early childhood education programs, which were identified as the most vulnerable populations and moved up the hill first. Emergency management is also in the building. The nation has just been awarded the grant, so we are not underway yet. This is a culmination of a 3-year process so far, and will hopefully we can pave the way for more solar development on our reservation. And that is my presentation. I know that was quick, but there it is. Sayoquil, I think that means thank you. In my language, I say hi hi.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelvin, for the great presentation on your microgrid project. And thank you both for your time and willingness to discuss your projects and share your stories. It's very much appreciated. Next, I will pass the floor to James Jensen to moderate the question and answer session. James is a contractor with the office, and if you haven't worked with James in his role as a project monitor on some of your projects, odds are good you've crossed paths with him on our webinar series. James plays an integral role in bringing you our monthly webinar and has for many years. James, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We have plenty of time for questions, so please submit any questions you have, and we'll likely be able to get to them. First question here is for Dr. Frank. How many people have been relocated to higher ground in the village of Taholah at this point? I saw some facilities, but are there any residences?
Well, at this point, we haven't relocated any residents. We've just relocated some programs at this point, but we do have future ongoing movement projects going, and we're working on some housing, and we're working on a neighborhood plan. So, you know, we're doing it piece by piece, and we've got it all laid out, but, you know, we're doing it in phases because of, you know, the lack of resources. So, you know, which is always something of concern. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did, I think. Another question, or question here for Harvey, and maybe a little bit in the weeds, but Harvey, do you have any idea on the battery systems, like what the round trip efficiency will be? I think it's related to the idea of charging the batteries and then discharging them again with the diesel generators, turning the diesel generators off and discharging the batteries. So, you know, what sort of electrical losses are there when you charge and then discharge the battery? Harvey, I believe you're on mute if you're trying to respond.
Okay, right, I couldn't unmute myself. So with regards to that technical part of it, I really do not have an answer. I know that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. I think the reason behind the original logic diagram was they thought it would be more efficient this way. However, from a resiliency point of view, I think it would be better if we were able to have the generators down for the duration. All of the generators that we have at our facilities are oversized. So they should be able to run the facility and recharge the batteries at the same time. With regards to the efficiency and which way it's more efficient, I really cannot speak to that.
Gotcha. Thanks, Harvey. Another question just came in for you. What percent of the total load at each building will be served by the solar battery generator microgrid?
Approximately 30%.
I think that's the average offset of the solar, but
yes.
You'll be able to operate the facilities at full load, is my understanding.
Yes,
for some period of time.
Yes, for up to 3 hours. The batteries are supposed to be sized in such a way that we can run the full facility for a minimum of 3 hours. Some of them even more on the battery alone before the generator will have to kick in.
Gotcha. Okay. We don't have any additional questions, so we'll we'll get a little break on this on the DOE side before the next session. So that's not a bad thing for us. So I'll hand this back to Mike to close us out.
Great. Thank you very much, James. And thanks again, Harvey and Kelvin, for presenting. This concludes session 8 of the program review. The presentations will be posted in a few days, and the recording will be available in the next week or 2. If you are attending the next session, you will need to join using the link and call-in number provided in the calendar invitation you received when you registered for that session. We hope to see you at session 9, starting at 2:40 p.m. Mountain Time. Take care. Goodbye.